Today we're going to take a quick look in 2021, because that's where we are now, at the trusty Fanatec Club Sport V3 pedals. Now I thought there's two reasons I'd do this. I did a pedal review of those OBP ones last week, I think it was, and also I'm in the middle of swapping over all my sim racing equipment from my old GT Amiga Art cockpit to the new Prime cockpit. So these are off, and what better time to take a little look at them. I have had a couple of people ask me after I put up the video, sort of doing the walk around in my rig, whether I'd sort of comment on my pedals and whether they're still, you know, worth getting and what have you. So the short answer is, yeah, very much so, because these come in at £400 plus delivery to wherever you might live. And for £400, I honestly can't say I've seen a better value 3-pedal setup. Let's start off with the construction. These are heavy, right? I'm going to estimate, I don't know, 6 or 7 kilos, maybe. They're pretty hefty. They're all aluminium construction, which again shows you how thick the metal is that's being used here, because aluminium's quite light, and yet these are hefty. We haven't got like a big thick base plate, like on some of the really high-end ones. We've got this sort of frame made up of the side pieces here, and then these tubular sections that run across here, and they're all bolted together. But they are heavy and they're solid. You know, they feel like you've got your money's worth straight away, so to speak. And also, I really like the finish on these. There are different pedal faces you can fit, which I'll show you in a second. But I really like the finish on these. I think they just look good, you know, and we all like something that looks good on our sim rig as well as performs well. So the it's like a brushed aluminium finish, as you can probably see. And a lot of you will have already seen these before anyway. But the pedals are all adjustable, up, down, left, right. I don't think you can actually slide the pedals left to right, because you'd need additional of these sort of tubular type inserts, which they didn't come with. At least mine didn't. I got these second hand for £250, would you believe? And they basically looked like brand new when I got them. So I was really chuffed. I did have to drive from where I live to London, central London, and back to get them, which probably put another 30 notes on the price in fuel, but still 280 notes, you might say, and still an absolute bargain. And I've had these, I don't know, well over a year now. In fact, probably getting on for 2 years. So you've got your usual pedal adjustments, up, down, left and right, and the angles as well, and the travel, in fact, on everything. I think we can adjust the travel on, or is it? Yeah, I think we can adjust travel on everything. We've then got these additional, you got so it's like an extension piece and then a different face plate, or you don't have to fit those extensions. You can just fit the face plate on its own. But I think these look a bit pony, to be honest. They're just plastic. I really like the brushed aluminium ones, so that's what I've got on there. You've got a nice heel plate at the front as well to rest your heels on, obviously, and yeah, I pretty much like everything about them. There is one thing that's quite laughable, but we'll get to that in a minute. But the build quality is great. They're hefty. They don't flex or wobble around. They don't squeak normally, but I did get a squeak on my Accelerator pedal. Now, very usefully, it comes with a little bit of grease. And so I was able to just whip it apart, lube up the bit that was squeaking and put it back together. So that was no bother either. It also comes with a few different springs. You've got red and black ones. They are lighter and harder, or heavier and stiffer, or whatever you want to describe it. They're for the clutch pedal and the Accelerator pedal. Now the black ones are the heavier ones, which is what I'm using, I think. Yeah, they are. The brake pedal itself, to adjust the stiffness of that, it is load cell obviously, and it has a 90 kilogram load cell. There is this, you see that red sort of sleeve there? You can wind that in and out, and that will determine how stiff your brake pedal is. Now I've got it on setting sort of 2.5. I think it goes up to 8, might be 10. Setting 2.5. So it can be a lot stiffer than what I've got it. But for me, this gives me just the right amount of stiff. In fact, I can't, it's going to be hard to show you on camera because I could do with a table at head height. But here's the travel before it gets stiff. So from there to there, it's like barely, maybe an inch or two before it really gets stiff. And I really like that. For me, that's spot on. Again, those OBP pedals last week, the brake pedal just goes all the way to the floor, so to speak, you know, and it was just a horrible experience. This is so much nicer. But yeah, so for me, the load cell and the stiffness or the weight of the pedal is plenty, and there's still overhead should you want it to be stiffer. The accelerator pedal, again, like I said in the other video the other day, accelerator pedals are the easiest thing to simulate, because in real cars from the late 90s onwards, they're just plastic pedals with 2 potentiometers or hall sensors. So it's very easy to replicate a brake pedal. This one does a nice job. The pedal feels nice underfoot. The spring tension with the black spring is just nice for me. Again, in a real car, accelerator pedals, they're not heavy. You know, they are just a spring and often a plastic enclosure with 2 pots, and you're just pushing against the spring and you're turning the potentiometers. So it's, you know, it's not much to get right, and be very difficult to get it wrong when you're simulating a real life pedal. Obviously, again, race pedal faces will look and be much nicer than plastic ones you might find in, you know, day-to-day cars. They're going to be aluminium or possibly steel. So we've got a nice aluminium, you know, accelerator pedal here. But yeah, that works just fine. You can adjust the travel, you can adjust the strength of the spring, you can adjust its position. So, and that's on a Hall effect sensor on this rather than potentiometers. So there's technically no moving parts as such, so it should last a very long time. So yeah, accelerator pedal's good, brake pedal's good. Clutch pedal is one of my favorite pieces on here. The way they've got it, this mechanism here, it's on like almost like a cam type setup. So when you get to, it's going to be hard for me to show if I can. Yeah, when you get to about there, it just starts to go light, and you're past what I'm going to call the simulated biting point of a clutch in real life. Again, I touched on this last week with that OBP review. In a real car that has a traditional style 3-piece clutch, so you've got your friction plate in the middle, you've got your flywheel, then your friction plate, your pressure plate, and a release bearing. The release bearing pushes on the pressure plate and disengages the springs to release pressure on the friction plate that's between the flywheel and the pressure plate. When you overcome those springs in real life, your clutch feels noticeably lighter. Now, in day-to-day normal cars, you won't really notice that happening unless you pay attention. If you get in your car and you move your clutch down very, very slowly, you'll notice it's a little light to begin with, where there's just some play. Once the play's been taken up, you feel the weight of the springs, and the springs look like fingers on a clutch pressure plate, which is why I'm doing this. So you feel it get hard, and then once you've overcome those springs and they've folded in, so to speak, the pedal goes noticeably lighter. But again, if you're just driving, you know, I don't know, a Nissan Micra, a Ford Fiesta, okay, something small with a very light clutch, you won't notice it day to day, and you'd have to very slowly move the clutch down and very slowly move it up until you just feel that change in tension on the pedal. But it is there. Again, this is for cars with traditional 3-piece clutch setups. We're not talking, you know, triple plate style ones or race clutches of that sort of clutch. Again, even a race clutch, if it's a 3-piece clutch setup like I've just described, with a pressure plate, a friction plate and a release bearing, what I've just described, that biting point, is actually really, really noticeable. I work on a lot of the old classic Fords that I've mentioned before, the Escort RS Turbos, Fiestas, Sierras, things like that. When I put an AP racing clutch or a Helix paddle clutch in some of these old cars, the clutch is super heavy, and you can really feel when you're pushing against those springs, and then when you get past them, when you've overcome them. It is super noticeable. And that's what I like about this clutch here, is it's really very clear and very obvious when that happens. Now you might be wondering, Carl, why does it matter? Because there isn't really a biting point. Well, if you configure the clutch in your chosen sim properly, then there is a biting point. So like obviously, as an example, in Dirt Rally, which is what I play the most of, you've got your clutch dead zone, which is how much you can move the pedal until it starts to register anything in the game. And then you've got your saturation, which is the opposite end of the scale. Now, if you left the saturation at 100%, for example, you would need to put the clutch all the way to the floor to be able to change gear. And as soon as you lifted the pedal up just a fraction, the clutch would engage. That's obvious. That's basically putting your biting point on the floor. So what you do with these Fanatec pedals and other pedals that have a simulated biting point is you adjust that saturation so that it matches where you feel the change in pressure on your pedal. So as I lift this pedal back up again and I feel it gets to its heaviest point or just before, that's where I adjust the slider to, very roughly, in the game. And then I'll sit there at the line and I'll do a test. I'll bring it up, and as I feel the springs re-engage, does the car start to creep forward? If it doesn't, I'll adjust the saturation down a little bit. If it's already started to move and I haven't yet got to my biting point, I'll adjust the saturation out a little bit. And the reason I do all this is so that when I'm sat there at the start of a stage, ready to launch, I can bring my clutch pedal up to the biting point and minimize the time it takes me to launch once those lights go green. So I really like a simulated biting point on a clutch pedal for sim racing. You don't really feel it when you're banging through the gears, you know, racing, but when you're pulling away at the line, when you're launching, that's when I really appreciate that being there. Don't make me any faster because I'm not that good, but I just like the fact that it feels realistic, which is what simulation is all about. So, to summarise and to stop waffling on, I think that's probably all there is to it. I mean, underneath you've got 4 rubber feet, which is where your bolts go through to bolt it down to your chosen sim rig. You've got your USB interface, which also allows you to plug in. So you can plug this directly into the wheel deck. You can go standalone USB. You can plug the Fanatec handbrake in, and then you've got separate plugs, clutch, brake, and gas. They are labelled on here, and your wires are obviously all there underneath as well. I like the red and black sort of combination, the accents. It actually matched my GT Amiga Art cockpit with my red and black seat and my red accents on there. Not anymore because I'm now silver and black, but shit happens. I like the brushed aluminium finish. I love the heft, the weight. I like the fact that it comes with different springs and different pedal faces, and you can adjust the heights and the distance and all those bits and bobs. Oh yeah, the thing that I don't like that's a bit pony. These vibration motors on the back here, they don't do jack. They're weird to you think they'd just work, right, out of the box, but they don't. You have to run Fanatec, is it, the software? Which is like a combination of Fanatec and LEDs put together to make up one word. I think that's the software you have to run to configure them. And like the vibrations, I can barely feel them. You know, they're supposed to be used for things like wheel slip and brake lock up, but they're gimmicky is the best way to describe them. They don't add anything to the game. I can't really feel them, especially not if you've got tactile transducers on your rig or any sort of motion. You will never, ever, ever notice those, so I just don't use them. But they are there, you know. They just needed to be heftier, in my opinion, and maybe they would have proved a little more useful. And also, they're not really integrated into many sims either. Again, it's been a long time since I've played with this, but I don't think there's any sims that sort of support it out of the box. I'm sure, again, you have to configure it in Fanatec, something to do with the telemetry feed for each. I'm not really sure, so I won't talk too much about that. But all you need to know is I think they're a bit pointless. You can barely feel them, so I don't use them. But other than that, for 400 notes, these are a very good pedal set. And I can't see myself choosing to change them unless some kind sim racing manufacturer out there decides to send me a better set for review, because they do everything I want. The brake pedal is plenty stiff enough. There's still some adjustment left for me if I wanted it to be heavier. And again, your brake pedal stiffness is going to vary not only on what you like, but on what rig you've got them fitted to. If you've got these, because you could happily fit these to a play seat challenge, to a wheel stand, any of the low to mid-range stuff, and they're going to work absolutely fine. But you don't want, for example, on a play seat challenge or a wheel stand, your brake pedal being stupidly heavy, because you'll tip your chair back if you're on a wheel stand, and if you're on the play seat challenge, you'll lift the middle of the play seat off the floor. So having adjustable pressure here where you can bring it right down is really quite useful, because it covers a wider audience of us. Whereas even some of the more higher end ones perhaps don't go quite as light even as what these do, because they're not really designed to. They're designed for people that have got them fitted to, you know, solid rigs, profile rigs and the like. But yes, I really like these. I can't see myself changing them, you know, for any, I mean, what else does it need to do? The accelerator pedal works well as an accelerator pedal. They look nice, they feel nice. The brake pedal is load cell and is plenty stiff enough for me, and the travel's adjusted just nice. I love the simulated biting point on the clutch. What would I gain by changing my pedals? They look nice on any rig, I think. I mean, that's a matter of taste. But yeah, for the money, I think these are well worth buying. I will stick some links in the description, both Amazon and eBay, if anyone's been, you know, thinking, oh, should I get some? And I've just decided to, I've just made the choice for you, and you're like, yeah, Carl, that sounds great, I'll buy some. There will be some links in the description as well. Sadly, I don't have any discount codes for Fanatec like I do GT Omega and Sim Racing Studio, but if you do buy any through my links, it helps the channel. So I appreciate that, of course. But I think that's all there is to talk about with these. I hope I haven't missed anything else out. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And yeah, take it easy.